In this video, we're going to talk about a main feature of Chinese that is one of the more difficult aspects for Western learners of the language. It is an aspect called tone, and it's a very essential part of the language. It is used to distinguish meaning when you're really saying the same syllables and vowels in a certain utterance. In Chinese, we call this sheng diao. Spelled out in pinyin, that's sheng diao. The characters are here. Throughout the entire presentation, I have traditional characters on the left-hand side and simplified characters on the right. Okay. Once again, this is pronounced sheng diao, and that is for tones. Okay. Important thing to note: tones are not the same as intonation. We use intonation all the time in English, but we use tones in Chinese. Okay, and this is not used in English tones. Okay. So, for example, of intonation, I could say this sentence in two ways. I could say, it's too expensive, meaning that I actually think that it's too expensive. Or I could respond maybe in a sarcastic way and say, it's too expensive, really saying that you really think that this is highly priced. In reality, I think it's really cheap. So you're changing the way that you use your pitch as you say it. It's too expensive versus it's too expensive, kind of going up in the second one, and the difference being how is portraying a different feel around the words. You're not actually changing the meaning. So that's the key thing about intonation, is that it does not change meaning of the individual words. It may change the meaning of the whole sentence, as it does in the example I told you, but it does not change the meaning of the words. We no longer have expensive maybe changing to cheap. You're still saying it's too expensive, but in a way that's it's too expensive, changing the meaning of the sentence but not the words themselves. However, in Chinese, we use pitches to distinguish words. So for example, on this side, we have a word that is pronounced 食品, and then on the other side, we have 饰品. Okay. On the left, this is the word for food or products. Okay. This the pinyin for this one is 食品, and then on the right-hand side we have video, and this is pronounced 视品. And you'll notice that when we use pinyin, we use these little accent marks on top to indicate the tones. So the second character in both of these are pronounced exactly the same. They're homophones. Okay, they're both pronounced pian. But on the left-hand side, we have shi here. This is shi. And over here, we have shi. Okay, pronounced with different tones to distinguish the words. Okay, on the left, once again, we have shi pian. And on the right, we have shi pian. Okay, so these are used to distinguish words. It may sound like they're exactly the same if this is the first time you're hearing of tones, but that's okay. You'll train your ear to listen for these things. It's foreign for an English language speaker, native one, to be able to think about these kinds of tones distinguishing words, but it will become easier as you practice more. Okay? The four tones of Mandarin Chinese are the high tone, or also known as the 音平声, 音平声. And as you can see on the diagram, it's the highest tone and it is completely flat. And what's nice about this is you can think about the name in yin, and this is the tone. Yin, yin. It's completely high, and flat does not change tone throughout the whole entire utterance of the syllable. Okay, yin, and as you can see, we denote the first tone with a flat line over the vowel. Okay, yin. Second one is the rising tone, otherwise known as the yang ping sheng, yang ping sheng. And just like before, we have yang, just like the actual tone is representing. It's going up from about mid-pitch all the way up. Yang, yang. Okay, so we have yin, yang, You may be wondering if yin and yang are related to yin and yang, and most certainly they are. These are the characters for yin and yang in Chinese, okay? But they are pronounced more specifically than we do in English. It's not yin, it's yin, and it's not yang, it's yang, okay? It's important that you stress the exact tone pitches and contours, okay? So it's not only important that this is high, it's important that this is flat as well, and that this one is not only kind of in the upper range, but it's also rising, okay? So we have yin, yang, okay? Third tone goes down and up, and it's called the shang sheng, shang sheng, shang sheng. If you have seen this character before, you may be a little confused why I'm calling it Shang as opposed to Shang, because this character is usually pronounced Shang, but when we say it in the name of the tone for third tone, we actually change the pronunciation to Shang, which is convenient because once again it represents the actual tone that we're talking about. Shang, Sheng, Shang, Shang, Shang. It starts out pretty low, goes even lower, and then all the way up. Okay? Shang, shang. This is a rough description of this tone. When you see it in isolation, this is how it's pronounced. But in general, there is a little bit of a change with this tone. So the third tone is a little bit of a nasty one. There are a bit of rules to follow with this one, but we'll get to that as we go on. But just know that this does occur, but typically just when it's either at the end of the sentence or when such a character is in isolation. Like if I were just to say shang, shang, that's fine and follows exactly this pitch contour. But if you listen really closely when I say shang sheng, shang sheng, it does sound slightly different in that we're cutting off this ending tail and mostly saying the low part. Shang sheng. Okay. Last one is qu sheng, qu sheng. Okay. Once again, we are pronouncing this. Qu, qu is a fourth tone. Sheng, qu sheng, qu, qu. Going all the way from the top, going all the way down. Qu. Okay? Qu sheng, qu sheng. Okay? You must emphasize going from the top all the way down to the bottom. Really what makes this tone, falling tone, is making sure that you're going from high to low. You can't just say qu sheng. That's really different. It almost sounds like a third tone, so you need to make sure you distinguish it, saying qu sheng, qu sheng. Really put emphasis in going down. Okay, so once again we have yin as first tone, yang as second tone, shang as third tone, qu as fourth tone. High, rising, low, falling. Okay, practice these. Okay, neutral tone. Those are the four main tones, but there's also a process that's called neutralization. That means that in particular words, for characters that normally have tone, just for those specific words and cases, we actually neutralize the second character so that it kind of flows a little better and sounds unique to the word. Okay? The neutralization follows a particular rule, and instead of having a pitch contour, you just say the character quickly and at a particular pitch, but not with changing pitch. Okay? So for instance, number one, we have first tone. Each of these characters individually is pronounced ma, ma in first tone. And then the next one is neutralized. And we don't write any accent mark on this one. Okay? And the way you pronounce this in whole is mama, mama. Okay? So we have high, flat, ma, and then neutral tone, mama, mama. Okay, that's how you pronounce this one. This is for first tone. For second tone, we have rising up. Each of these characters pronounced independently is yeah. Together, we say the whole word is yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so we have yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so that's for second tone. Rises up and then goes lower, just like this one. Mama. Yeah, yeah. Okay. This, by the way, is the word for mother. And this is for grandfather. specifically the paternal grandfather. Okay? Third one, we have 姐 as the pronunciation for each of the characters. 姐. And then once again, we neutralize the second one, and we pronounce it in whole as 姐姐, 姐姐. Okay, so we go down, and then as we go up, we kind of meet up with it in the neutral tone. 姐姐, 姐姐. This is her third tone. So over here, the neutral tone was lower, and here it's higher with the third tone. Okay, 姐姐. I didn't write this tail quite as long as it was in the diagram on the previous slide, but we'll discuss that further. But just know that for the first part, when we say 姐, we're just making it nice and low and still in a little bit of a U shape. 姐姐, 姐姐. Okay, and this is older sister. Okay, last one. Each of the characters by themselves is pronounced ba in fourth tone. Ba. Together, we write one with ba and then a neutral tone. Baba, baba. Okay, this is going down, neutral tone meeting at the bottom. So again, it's lower. Once again. Okay, baba. Okay, and this is father. To say these once again, we have mama, 爷爷, 姐姐, baba, mama, 爷爷, 姐姐, baba. Okay? I'm going to do some examples that aren't just repeated characters. These are all standard words. So the first one is 清楚, 清楚. Okay, once again, we have a first tone, 清, and the next one is neutralized, 楚, 清楚. Flat, and then down, 清楚. Okay, next one. Oh, sorry. This is also in English. This is basically clear, as in, like, you can understand something clearly. Okay, so it's very clear, something that you can understand easily. Okay, next one is 馒头, 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 馒头. Okay, once again, up and then down a little bit. And this is for a steamed bun, 馒头. Next one is 暖和, 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 暖和. Okay, this is warm. Next one is 故事, 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 故事. Okay, this is a story. 故事. Say it once again. 清楚, 馒头, 暖和, 故事. Okay, notice though that these characters, the second ones in all these cases, if pronounced independently, do have tones associated with them. For instance, this one here, in isolation, we pronounce it 是. Okay, but in this case, just because it's a specific word, we know that we need to neutralize it and instead say 故事. Instead of 故事, we say 故事. Just makes it a nice, little bit more flowy, and it really emphasizes the fact that the words are together. The characters are together to form one word. Okay. Next up, we have some of the particulars about the third tone. Okay, so third tone, when it's within an utterance, such as a word, for instance, specifically not at the end, specifically kind of tacked in between other characters. Could be at the beginning as well. But when it's within, we, instead of doing this, instead of going down and all the way up, we just keep it low and just the down part. Because the third tone is pretty long in comparison to the other tones. We need to compress it kind of when you speak fast. Okay, so this character is ma independently, ma. And then this character is shang, shang. Okay, same here, ma and shang. But together, instead of saying ma shang, we say ma shang, ma shang. Okay, you're really shortening the third tone here to say ma shang. The ma is really just staying nice and low. Ma shang. It's not 马上. It's just 马上. Okay, this word means immediately. Okay, next one is a very important rule. This is a tone change, and you will see this a lot because it happens every time you have two third tones in a row. So the most common instance is here in the word for hello, which is 你好. Independently, each of the characters is 你 and 好. But when you have two third tones together, if you're to pronounce them independently, you might want to think that you have 你好. But in reality, we're really only taking this part, the last end of the first character and the rest of the second one. Okay, so we really have essentially a second tone, 你 rising, and then a third tone, 好. Okay, so you end up 你好. So what you hear, 你好, is the word. Okay, we do not write this, never write this, because it makes confusion as to what this is referring to, because you don't want to see all of your third tone characters be written with second tone, because then it'll be confusing. You just have to remember that when you see 你 and 好 or any two third tone characters next to each other, you must change the first one into a second tone. Okay, so it's not 你好, it's 你好. Okay, and then third point is at the end of an utterance. So for instance here, as we have had with 好, when it's at the end, you do not do this cutoff thing we did up here. Okay, so this was for here when it's within an utterance, but here there is no cutoff. Okay, you say the whole tone, just as we had in the chart before. So we have second tone, and then the non-shortened version, the original version of the third tone here. 你好, it goes down and up. Okay, really let it go up. 你好. Okay, so those are 3 points you need to remember about third tone. Okay, so here's a sentence to help you remember all of these. It uses the two words we just learned. Two new words are both in first tone. Here we have 他, which is he. And then we have here 说, which is hello. 他说. Okay, together this makes a sentence. 他马上说你好. 他马上说你好. Okay, so here is the short third tone with 马, and then we have change to second tone, and then this is the long quote-unquote third tone. Okay, 马上马上你好你好他马上说你好. This means literally, he immediately says hello. He immediately says hello, just in the same word order as English. Okay? 他马上说你好他马上说你好. Right? So just one sentence to kind of combine all those rules together. Next, we have the 3-3-3 configuration, meaning we have 3 third tones next to each other. This is a subtle nuance. If you are new to pinyin and new to third tone changes, you may want to skip this. Don't worry about it. But if you have seen tones before and seen a little bit of Chinese, this may be of interest to you. But essentially what we have 3 characters here. We have 水, 水, 果, 果, and 好, 好. Okay, these two form a word, and this word means fruit. This means good. 好, okay. So 水果好 means the fruit is good. Okay, the fruit is good. Okay, so the way you say this, 水果好, 水果好, is we're really changing this to a second tone, and then a third tone. Both of these are kind of preparing in anticipation for this last third tone. Okay, and they're both changing in the same way because they're part of the same word. Okay, but for instance, if they're not in the same word, here we have the fruit is good. The fruit is good. Remember, in Chinese we do not have is. Instead, the adjective good takes on the job of is as long as it's after the noun. Okay, so we have 水果好, the fruit is good. And in this case, we have good fruit. Good fruit. So it's not stating something about the fruit. It's instead saying that it's a subset of all fruit. It's specifically good fruit. Okay, and here we want to say 好水果，好水果. Okay, so in here we had 水果好, and then here we had 好水果. Okay, and we don't want to say, do not want to say 好水果, because that makes it sound like 好水 is a word, which it's not. Okay, you are really saying 好 as an adjective to describe the noun, which is a two-character word. Okay, so that's why we say 好水果，好水果 instead of 水果好. Okay, so it's a subtle nuance, but something of interest. How you tackle the 3-3-3 configuration depends on how the words are structured. Okay, the fruit is good, 水果好, good fruit, 好水果. Okay. Next, we have two characters that specifically have some tone changes. The first one is 不, 不, which means not. And it's used anytime you want to negate anything. Okay, so first one we have 不懂, 不懂. In this case, we write it with fourth tone as I have written up here. No change. 不懂. In fact, there is no change when 不 precedes a first tone, second tone, or third tone. There is only a change when 不 precedes fourth tone. Okay, you can remember that because 不 is also fourth tone. You don't want to say 不是. You actually say 不是, 不是, 不是. Instead of 不是, we change this to second tone. Okay, this first one means do not understand. 不懂, 懂 is understand. 不懂, do not understand. 不是 is not. 不是, 不是, 不懂, 不是. And then the third case is when we have 不 sandwiched in between two other words in a phrase. Okay, here we have 是不是, 是不是 for neutral tone. This is usually denoted by a 0 or a 5. Okay, so sometimes fifth tone, I like to use 0 just because it emphasizes that there's really no pitch contour we're worrying about. Okay, so we have 是不是, 是不是, 是不是. Okay, here we have 不是, here we have 是不是, 是不是. This means is or is not, and it's used usually in a question. Okay, like 你是不是中国人? Are you a Chinese person? 你是不是中国人? 是不是? Okay, so that's how this character changes tone. Okay, character E means 1. When it's used as a number, we always used first tone, E. But when it's used as the word a, like in English, or just as part of a word that's not specifically the number, we change the tone again just like 不, based on the following characters. So here we have 生, 生. And so we say 一生, 一生, just like 不. We make it fourth tone, kind of by default. And then that only changes when this comes before a fourth tone. Okay, so we have 个, and instead of saying 一个, we say 一个, 一个. Okay, 一生, 一个. This means all one's life. 一生, 一生. Sheng is basically like new life or born, and then saying 一生 is like taking life in a collective, so all one's life. 一生. If you were actually to say 一生 with first tone 一生 as opposed to 一生, you would really be saying doctor. Okay, so sometimes this is really important because they distinguish words in maybe more subtle ways. Okay, so this is really 一生, and then here we have 一个, 一个, which means one of something. Okay, 一个人, one person. Okay, 一个. And then here we have another sandwich situation. Okay, so we have 些, 一, 些, which means to rest a little bit. 歇 is rest, and then 歇一歇 is like to rest a rest, or just rest a little bit. 歇一歇, 歇一歇. Neutral tone here. 歇一歇, 一声一个, 歇一歇. Okay. Next I have a mini quiz, but I'm going to save that for another video. I hope that you have found this informational, and please practice the tones and try to get as good at them as you possibly can. Go ahead to my mini quiz. I will link that in the video description, and we'll get a little bit of practice on the different tone combinations. We'll also see it in some different word contexts, and then finally we'll see how well you can try to detect tones when they are said. Okay, but that is all for right now. Go ahead, take the mini quiz. And I hope you have found this informational. If you are still struggling with the different numbers and the tones, try to rewatch this video and really try to repeat everything that I am saying. It will really help you, I swear. Okay, tones are super essential to studying Chinese, but they will get more and more natural the more that you work with them. Okay, thanks for watching.